So the key is to allow your law of attraction, and that's the next thing I'd like to write down, is to allow your law of attraction to trigger your fear. So notice your law of attraction. I don't like using acronyms. Law of attraction, that stands for. Notice your law of attraction. So, this week I had one man, a male. It's very important what gender too, right, is doing this with you. So this week I had one male man who is a religious zealot email me with lots of condemnatory stuff, right? And so I've got to look at that as a law of attraction thing. What's the law of attraction thing there? And that one man emailed both Mary and myself separately. So both Mary and myself has a law of attraction with that particular one. And then I had one lady emailing me specifically, addressing me specifically, saying different things about how I was unkind and not gentle and all these different things. And basically, the word she used quite often was uncool. I'm uncool. I'm uncool. So there was that's my law of attraction. That was a female sending me that email. So, poet, and I don't know it. And none of you caught that one. So I had a female sending me the email, and that is a very important part of my law of attraction in that particular event. Does that make sense? And so I've got to look at that. Then during the week, we had a number of spirit-based events occur, myself and Mary together, where different spirits came to talk and different spirits came to express themselves, and they had different emotions and so forth. And so that's part of our law of attraction, to allow ourselves to feel about that, what fears were involved in that. And the key is to work through those particular fears as well. Does that make sense? Your law of attraction tells you everything that's going on pretty much. Mary, you want to... I'll just turn on this way. Yeah.
I just wanted to add for the lady who asked the question about prayer, that sometimes I just pray to God to show me about this issue, and usually the answer comes in my law of attraction, but if I pray about it, it seems to really heighten the experience.
Seems to ramp up the law of attraction.
So even if I think, I don't really know what's going on with me around this issue, but can you show me what is really happening for me emotionally?
Yeah.
Because sometimes I feel really far removed from the issue.
Yep. Yeah. So there's a lot you can do with prayer. Lots you can do with prayer. And my suggestion with prayer is to notice, when you pray, you can ramp up your own law of attraction. The problem with fear is we often don't want to. What we want to do most of the time is to suppress our fears, you see. And so we're trying to suppress our law of attraction about fear. I have quite often people coming up, but you're saying if I ramp up my law of attraction about fear, I'm afraid of dying in a car crash. But what do I do with that? Like if I ramp up my law of attraction, does that mean I'm going to have a car accident next week? And the answer is, well, yeah, you're afraid about a car accident every single day of your life, aren't you? So feel the fear. When you feel the fear of that, it will actually lessen the law of attraction about the issue, not the opposite way around. Right? See, a lot of times what we do is we think it's going to increase the law of attraction about the issue when we tune into the emotion. Because we're taught New Age teachings again. You either go down the track of saying, what you've got to do is use your mind and you zen out of that. And it doesn't change your law of attraction at all. I was talking with Josh last week when he was around and at our place, and he was saying how he went into that beautiful zen state, how you felt really zenned out and blissed. And yet, law of attraction still, computer broke down and car broke down and whatever it was else that broke down, they all still happened. And it's still happening. But because of the feeling like of meditating out of it, you get out of that law of attraction. The truth is, the law of attraction is happening. If it's happening, you haven't dealt with it yet. Right? And that's just a very basic truth. So if you haven't dealt with it yet, let yourself feel. All right, law of attraction has brought me this week 2 more criticisms, pretty intense criticism from one guy, violent sort of criticism. I've got to look at that. I've got to look at what's inside of me, what emotion inside of me is that triggering. Let myself feel that. Ben?
Did you reply to the emails?
No.
So you just leave it?
Yeah, what I try to do myself is not project back at the person, right? So there are times when I've dealt with the emotion that I will then reply to the email, but the majority of the times what I will do myself is just feel the emotion until it's done, and I'll just reread the email. I print them out and reread. So you know how people say, don't ever read your own hate mail? Well, I read all of my hate mail, right? So what I do is print it out. Mary's seen me do this quite often. Print it out and I reread it, go off and deal with it, reread it again and see. And in the end, once I can read it and I've now dealt with the emotion, you can feel that within yourself where you feel in a space of love with the person. Now, if I want to, I address the issue with the person, whatever that issue might be. A lot of times by then, though, they've emailed me back saying sorry. Do you know what I mean? That often happens as a result of you working through your emotion and getting into a place of forgiveness where the person basically works through theirs as well. So that's often happened. But if that hasn't happened, then and I feel there is some issues to address in truth, then I'll address those issues. Yeah. And I suggest for you to do that as well. Try to avoid this reprojection of stuff back at the person, because what you end up with is just a tennis match. One of those tennis matches where you go, hit, the other one, hit, it's like, hit, and ones that sometimes like, oh, that was a good rally, but it just lasts 25 minutes and it seemed a bit boring to watch, right? And that's what happens to our life a lot. We finish up entering into these transactions that all they are is hitting the emotion back and forward, but not actually feeling the emotion. So stay in the transaction emotionally and feel the emotion. When you stay in the transaction emotionally and feel the emotion, you will notice changes in the dialogue if you enter into a dialogue after that. You'll notice changes where one of you shifts, then the other one starts to shift and so forth. And eventually you get to a point, and in some cases we've had points where, we've had dialogues for 10 or 15 times after I've dealt with the emotion. And then in the end we've said, well, that's enough now. Basically, this person is still projecting anger and hatred and whatever else, and it's time for us to stop and say that's enough, And you'll feel that time inside of yourself when you're starting to be unloving towards yourself. But you won't avoid emotionally what's going on. So that's why I find it's good to read all the hate mail and deal with all of that emotionally. Yeah. And in the process of that, obviously things change and your law of attraction changes, events change, different things get attracted to you, and you notice your attraction's changing and you can see, wow, I've dealt with that. I've really dealt with that particular issue now. So now when I'm in a group like this and I get projected at me lots of anger and hatred, my back, I used to get terrible back pain, so bad that I couldn't sit down after the group. And so what I'd have to do is sort of bend over and sort of like in a fetal position, bending over and just cry until the back pain was released. And that was all just unworthy feelings coming from that anger and rage and so forth. So I just allow myself to do that. And then feel like going off next weekend and doing another talk and triggering the same thing. And then you get to a point where, wow, that's not there anymore. And even though I've got maybe some anger or other projections coming, I still don't feel that anymore. And you know then that everything's been released. Yeah.